Chapter 1. From a Little Girl to a Big Dream. Welcome, dear learners. Today we begin the story of a woman whose life touched millions of hearts. Her name is Mother Teresa. But when she was born in 1910, she was called Angeze Gongshe Bojakshiu. She grew up in a small city called Skopje, which is now in North Macedonia. Imagine a city full of life, with markets, colorful shops, and children running in the streets. The smell of fresh bread filled the air. Bells rang from churches. People laughed and talked. Young Angeza loved to watch everything around her. She listened carefully to stories told by her parents, teachers, and neighbors. Some stories were about ordinary people, and some were about missionaries who traveled far away to help the poor and sick. These stories gave her hope and filled her heart with curiosity. She often dreamed, what if I could help people too? Her family was simple but very loving. Her father was a businessman. He worked hard every day to provide for his family. Her mother was gentle and kind. She taught Angeza and her 3 siblings about faith, honesty, and love. Every evening they sat together for dinner. The table was small but full of warmth. They shared food, laughter, and stories. Sometimes her mother would say, "Kindness is more important than money." These words stayed in Angezi's heart forever. She watched her parents help neighbors, give food to those in need, and pray together. It felt natural for her to care for others. Even as a little girl, she began to notice suffering. If a neighbor was sick, she tried to help. If a child had no shoes, she gave what she could. Her small hands offered food, her soft voice offered comfort, and her prayers offered hope. People began to notice her. They said, "This child has a very kind heart." Life, however, was not always easy. When Angezi was 8 years old, her father passed away. The family was sad and faced many difficulties. Money became tight. Sometimes there was not enough food. Sometimes the house felt empty and quiet. But even in sadness, Angezi found strength. She prayed often. She prayed for her father, for her family, and for all the people in her city who needed help. She understood early that life could be hard. Yet she also learned a powerful lesson. No matter how difficult life becomes, small acts of kindness can make a big difference. Even with these challenges, Angezi's heart was full of dreams. She listened to stories about missionaries who left their homes and families to help others far away. They traveled to distant lands where people were sick, hungry, or poor. She imagined herself walking through faraway streets, holding the hands of children, giving food to the hungry, and caring for the sick. Every Sunday she went to church. She listened to the priest speak about love, faith, and sacrifice. She learned that helping others was not just a choice, it was a calling to serve, to comfort, and to make the world a better place. As she grew, her small acts of kindness became habits. She helped neighbors carry water. She gave food to children who had none. She visited sick people and offered comfort, even if it was just through a gentle touch or a quiet prayer. She learned to see the world through the eyes of those in need. While other children played games and laughed, Angezi noticed who was left alone, who was hungry, or who was sick. She often wished she could do more. At times she felt frustrated because she was small and could not help everyone. Yet, she never stopped trying. She discovered that even small kindness could give hope to someone in pain. Her childhood was also filled with learning and curiosity. She loved to read and listen to stories. She dreamed of faraway lands, of mountains, rivers, and cities she had never seen. She imagined the lives of children in other countries, the people who had no homes, and the sick who needed care. She often said to herself, "One day I will go there. I will help them. I will serve God in every small act." These thoughts made her heart strong. They gave her purpose even at a young age. The city of Skopje itself influenced her deeply. The markets, the sounds, the smells, the laughter, and even the cries of the poor all taught her lessons of life. She understood the beauty of simple things, a shared meal, a smile, or a hand held in comfort. These simple lessons prepared her for the bigger world she would later enter. She learned that love and compassion are powerful, even when you have very little. She also learned the importance of prayer and patience. Many nights she prayed for her city, for her family, and for the world she wished to serve one day. Even at this young age, contrasts were clear in her life. She saw joy and sadness, wealth and poverty, health and illness. She understood that life could be unfair, but people could make it better. Her heart was drawn to those in need. She dreamed of a life where she could dedicate herself to helping others completely. These early experiences shaped her character. They planted a seed that would grow into a mission that touched millions of lives around the world. Every day, young Anjezi learned lessons about courage, empathy, and faith. She learned that age or size does not limit kindness. She learned that a small hand can offer great help. She learned that a simple smile can bring hope. And she learned that life is not just about receiving, but about giving. These lessons stayed in her heart and guided her actions. By the time she reached adolescence, her path was becoming clear. Her small acts of kindness, her compassion, her curiosity, and her dreams were all leading her to something greater, something that would require courage, faith, and endless love. She understood that her life was not only her own, it was meant to touch the lives of others. Every story she had heard, every act of kindness she had seen, every prayer she had offered had prepared her for a life of service. At 18, Anjezi faced a decision that would change everything. She felt a calling deep in her heart. A voice seemed to whisper, "Go and serve. Leave your home. Help the poor and the sick." She thought about her family, her city, and her childhood. She remembered the lessons her parents taught her, the stories she loved, and the prayers she prayed. She felt fear and excitement at the same time. This was the moment when a young girl full of dreams would step into a life of extraordinary service. At 18, she made a choice that would change her life and the lives of millions around the world. But before we see where this choice takes her, we will explore the first signs of greatness in her life, the moments that showed her courage, her dedication, and her unbreakable spirit. Chapter 2: The First Step Toward Greatness. At 18, Anjeza made a decision that would change her life forever. She chose to leave her home in Skopje and travel far away to serve God. Her heart was full of hope, but her mind felt nervous. She wanted to join the Sisters of Loreto in Ireland. The convent was a place of learning, prayer, and service. She knew that here she could dedicate her life completely to God. Saying goodbye to her family was not easy. She hugged her mother and cried. Her siblings waved at her from the doorway. Her father had passed away many years ago, but she remembered his lessons too. The journey was long and lonely. She traveled by train and boat, passing mountains, rivers, and cities she had never seen. Every step made her feel small and uncertain, but a quiet voice in her heart whispered, "This is your path. Follow it with love and faith." In Dublin, she began her training. The city was busy and cold, very different from sunny Skopje. She studied English so she could teach children in the future. She learned grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. Every morning, she prayed in the chapel. Every evening, she read books about saints and missionaries. She met teachers who guided her with patience. They noticed her dedication. They saw how she stayed after class to help other students. They admired her gentle voice, her quiet smile, and her willingness to serve. Even as she learned, she was already helping. She tutored students who struggled, offered kind words to the lonely, and shared her small joys with everyone. Dublin taught her discipline, patience, and the power of small acts of care. After months of preparation, it was time to leave Ireland. Anjali traveled to India, to the city of Calcutta, now called Kolkata. The city was alive with noise, colors, and smells she had never experienced before. Streets were crowded with people, carts, animals, and rickshaws. The air was hot and thick, and the smell of spices mixed with smoke from the streets. She felt both excitement and fear. She had come so far from home. The poverty she saw shocked her. People slept on the streets. Children begged for food. The sick had no doctors. The poor looked hungry and tired. She had never seen so much need in one place. Her heart ached, but she also felt a spark of purpose. She whispered to herself, "I am here to help. I must do something." Her first work in Calcutta was at St. Mary's School. The school was small but full of energy. Children from poor families came to learn reading, writing, and prayers. Many had never held a book before. Anjali's gentle voice and patient teaching soon won their hearts. She would sit with children who struggled, repeat words slowly, and smile at them. She praised small victories, saying, "Good job, you can do it." Her kindness gave children confidence. They trusted her. She listened to their stories, laughed with them, and sometimes wiped away their tears. She began to understand that love and patience could teach more than words alone. Teaching was not only about knowledge, it was about care, attention, and respect. Even as she worked, life was not easy. Some days were long and tiring. The streets of Calcutta called to her. She heard cries of hungry children, moans of the sick, and the sound of empty stomachs. At night, she felt lonely in her small room. She missed her family, her city, and the familiar streets of Skopje. She wondered, "Am I doing enough? Can one person really help so many?" Doubts came to her heart. Sometimes she cried quietly before sleep, but each morning she rose again, reminded by the children's smiles, the small hands she held, and the eyes that trusted her. Every act of kindness brought joy and strength back to her own heart. She learned that giving could also give back courage and hope. Her first months in Calcutta were filled with small lessons and discoveries. She saw that service was not easy, but it was powerful. She learned to carry food for children, to comfort the sick, and to teach patiently. She learned that even small gestures, like offering a smile, holding a hand, or saying a kind word, could change someone's day. She learned to balance her work with prayer, to find quiet moments to reflect, and to listen to the needs of others carefully. With each challenge, her courage grew. With each child helped, her heart expanded. She began to understand the meaning of her calling, to live not for herself, but for the people who needed her most. There were moments when she felt the world was too big and the problems too many. Streets full of suffering could overwhelm her, but she remembered the lessons of her childhood. Small acts matter. Love is powerful, and faith can guide every step. She began to dream bigger. She thought, if I can help a few children, why not many? If I can serve one sick person, why not thousands? Her heart burned with a quiet determination. She knew that the path would be long and full of challenges, but she was ready to walk it. And then, one day, something happened that changed everything. She was riding a tram through the crowded streets of Calcutta. The city was noisy and bustling as usual. People pushed past each other. Children ran between the cars. Vendors shouted their prices. She looked out at the streets and suddenly she saw the faces of the poor, the sick, and the hungry in a way she had never seen before. A deep sadness filled her heart. She realized that teaching in a school was not enough. There were thousands of people who had no one to care for them. In that moment, she understood her true calling. Her mind raced with ideas, her heart filled with determination. She whispered, I must do more. I cannot ignore this suffering. At that moment, she made a silent promise to herself. She promised to dedicate her life to those who were forgotten, sick, hungry, and poor. She promised to go beyond the walls of the school, beyond the comfort of her small room, beyond her own fears. She promised to serve God by serving humanity in its most desperate moments. It was the beginning of a journey that would take her across the world, touch millions of lives, and inspire generations. From that day forward, young Angezi was no longer just a teacher or a nun in a foreign city. She became a servant of the poor, a listener to the suffering, and a symbol of love and hope. Every act she performed, every prayer she whispered, and every child she helped would grow into a life of extraordinary service. And this is where her story of greatness truly begins, a story of courage, compassion, and unwavering faith. The world had yet to see her full potential, but the first signs of greatness were already shining clearly. And soon, the challenges that tested her spirit and faith would come, shaping her into a woman whose life would change the world. Chapter 3. The moment her calling began. After seeing the suffering in Calcutta, Angezi knew she could not stay inside the convent walls forever. Teaching children was important, but the streets called to her. She felt a strong voice in her heart. It said, Go, serve the poorest of the poor. Help them now. The voice was quiet but clear. She thought about the sick, the hungry, the lonely, and the dying people she had seen. She knew she had to act. It was not easy. Leaving the comfort of the convent meant stepping into a world of uncertainty, danger, and hardship. But her heart was full of love, and her faith gave her courage. She decided to follow the calling. She spoke to her superiors in the convent. At first, they were worried. It is dangerous, they said. The streets are harsh. The work is hard. Angezi listened carefully. She bowed her head and said, I feel God asking me to serve them. I cannot ignore this need. After long discussions, they finally agreed. She could leave the school and begin a new mission. They gave her a simple white sari with a blue border, a few basic supplies, and their prayers. It was a small bundle, but it carried hope and courage. Her first days in the slums were difficult. The streets were narrow and dirty. Children ran barefoot through mud. People sat on the ground, covered in dust and illness. The smell of the city was strong. Spices, smoke, and sweat mixed together. Anjesi's heart ached, but she did not turn away. She walked carefully, offering water, bread, and gentle words. She listened to people's stories. She held the hands of the sick and whispered prayers for the dying. Slowly, people began to notice her. They called her the nun with a kind heart. Even in a city full of strangers, she became a symbol of love and care. Every day she took small steps. She carried children who were too weak to walk. She fed the hungry with whatever food she could find or receive from neighbors. She cleaned wounds with water and cloth, often working for hours under the hot sun. At night, she prayed for the sick she could not save and thanked God for the ones she helped. Each act was small, but together they made a difference. She learned that change does not happen all at once. One meal could save a child for a day. One smile could give hope to someone who felt alone. One prayer could comfort a broken heart. She faced challenges every day. Sometimes people were suspicious of her. Some thought she could not make a difference. Why help one person? They asked. The city is full of poor people. You cannot save them all. Anjesa listened quietly. She did not argue. She remembered the stories of saints and missionaries from her childhood. They had faced similar doubts and dangers, but they had persisted. She believed that helping even one person could create ripples of change. Each life touched could inspire others to help, and together, many lives could be saved. Even when she was tired and hungry herself, she continued. There were nights when she had no food to eat and little water to drink. Her body ached from walking, bending, and lifting children. She sometimes felt lonely and afraid. But she remembered her mission. She remembered the children's eyes, the hands she held, and the prayers whispered softly in the streets. She realized that service required patience, courage, and love. One act of kindness was never wasted. She discovered the power of small steps, repeated every day with faith. People slowly joined her. A few neighbors helped carry food. Some offered blankets or old clothes. A kind doctor gave her medicine. Volunteers came, inspired by her courage and determination. Together, they began to make small changes. A child recovered from sickness. A mother received food for her family. The streets were still crowded and poor, but hope began to grow. The world seemed a little brighter because of their efforts. Anjesi also learned valuable lessons about leadership and humility. She never ordered others to work. She worked alongside them. She listened to their ideas and encouraged them. She shared her dreams and prayed with everyone. She learned that true service comes from the heart, not from power or money. People followed her because they trusted her and loved her mission. She showed that even a single person with courage and compassion could inspire many. One day, as she walked through the slums carrying a small basket of food, she paused and looked around. Children were playing in the mud. Families were sitting quietly, waiting for a meal. Sick people rested on the ground. She thought about how much work was left to do. Her heart was heavy, but it also felt full. She whispered a prayer. Lord, show me the way. Help me reach more people. Give me courage to continue. At that moment, she understood something powerful. Helping one person could change many lives. One life touched with love could inspire others to care, and their actions could multiply. But she also realized a difficult truth. Not everyone would understand her work. Some would doubt her. Some would criticize her. Some might even try to stop her. She felt nervous and afraid, but her faith remained strong. She knew she could not give up. She understood that her mission would require not just love, but persistence, courage, and patience. Every day would be a new test. Every small act would be a step toward a greater purpose. As the sun set over the crowded streets of Calcutta, Anjezi walked slowly, carrying a child in her arms. The city was noisy with evening sounds, but in her heart there was a quiet peace. She knew that her life had changed forever. Her calling was clear. She would serve the poorest of the poor, no matter how difficult the path. And she also knew that this was only the beginning. Her small steps, repeated with love and faith, would grow into a mission that touched the lives of thousands and eventually millions. She realized that helping one person could change many lives. But would others support her mission? Could one small nun really make a difference in a city so full of need? These questions weighed on her mind, but she also knew that she could not turn back. She had taken her first steps on a path that would lead to greatness, faith, and extraordinary service. The world had not yet seen the full power of her compassion, but it was about to. Chapter 4. Small Acts, Big Change. Anjezi's small steps of kindness soon began to grow. The people of Calcutta noticed her work. Neighbors who once walked past the sick and hungry began to help. Some brought food, others donated blankets or old clothes. Small shops offered rice, milk, and tea. Slowly, she built a small team. Volunteers worked beside her, carrying children, washing wounds, and comforting the sick. Together, they created a circle of care in a city that had so little hope. Anjeza did not take credit. She worked quietly, encouraging everyone to give their best. Her humble heart inspired others. People said, "If she can do this, we can help too." Word of her courage reached the church leaders. Priests and nuns came to see her work in the slums. They observed how she treated each person with respect, kindness, and love. They were impressed by her patience and determination. "This young nun has a heart full of God's love," they said. They blessed her work and offered guidance. Soon her reputation spread through Calcutta. Families began to trust her. Children ran to her for comfort. Even strangers on the street recognized her as someone who cared deeply for the poor. Her small acts of kindness were becoming known citywide. One of the greatest joys for Anjeza was saving lives. Children who were weak from hunger began to recover with food and care. Sick people who had no medicine found relief with the small supplies she provided. She held the hands of the dying and whispered prayers in their ears. She soothed lonely hearts with a gentle voice and a comforting smile. Each life she touched brought her joy, but it also brought responsibility. She realized that every person mattered. One life saved could create hope for a family. One act of care could inspire others. Slowly, the city began to notice her work. People no longer ignored the suffering. They were beginning to see a solution. With growing donations and support, Anjezi decided to create a small hospice. She wanted a place where the sick and dying could feel love, dignity, and comfort. She called it House of the Pure Heart. It was a simple building with a few beds, blankets, and medicines. Volunteers helped clean the rooms, feed the patients, and sit beside them in their final hours. Families who could not care for their loved ones brought them here. The hospice became a beacon of hope. People whispered, Here, at least, they are treated with love. Njezi worked day and night. She did not rest until everyone was fed, cleaned, and prayed for. Her heart was full, but her body often felt tired. Still, she smiled, knowing that her work saved lives and inspired others. As her mission grew, newspapers and media began to take notice. Journalists wrote stories about the young nun who cared for the poorest of the poor. Headlines spoke of her courage, compassion, and determination. More volunteers joined her cause, inspired by the stories. Donations increased, allowing her to provide more food, medicine, and supplies. People who had once ignored the slums began to help. The community rallied around her mission. Slowly but steadily, Njezi's small acts of kindness were growing into something much bigger. Her dedication and faith were spreading hope to many corners of the city. Even with this early success, challenges were never far away. The slums were still full of suffering. Many people were too sick, too hungry, or too poor to help themselves. There were nights when she could not save everyone. Each loss reminded her of the fragility of life. She sometimes cried quietly in the hospice, asking God for strength and guidance. She understood that her mission would never be complete. The more she helped, the more needs she saw. And yet, these challenges did not stop her. They made her stronger, more determined, and more compassionate. She learned that success was not about fame or recognition. True success was measured in the lives she touched, in the hope she gave, and in the love she shared. Njezi also learned important lessons about leadership. She encouraged her volunteers to work with care, patience, and respect. She never commanded, she guided. She shared her vision with others and listened to their ideas. She celebrated small victories: a child learning to read, a patient recovering from illness, or a family receiving food. She taught everyone that even small acts could have great impact. People began to trust her leadership. They saw that her heart was pure, her intentions selfless, and her faith unwavering. Slowly, a movement of compassion was growing around her. The city of Calcutta began to change, little by little. People who had never helped the poor before were now volunteering. Families who had ignored the sick were bringing food. Children who once played in the streets began to attend her school or visit the hospice. The hope that Njezi carried in her heart was spreading outward, touching more lives than she could count. And yet, she knew this was only the beginning. There were still so many in need. The city was vast, the slums endless, and the poverty deep. Her work had grown, but her mission was far from complete. Despite the early recognition, Njezi remained humble. She never sought praise or rewards. Every prayer she whispered, every hand she held, and every child she fed was an offering of love. She understood that service required sacrifice, patience, and faith. She also learned that her calling would demand more courage than she had ever known. People would support her mission, but others might doubt her. Critics would question her methods. Challenges that she could not yet imagine would arise. And yet, she felt ready. Her faith and compassion were stronger than fear. By the end of her first years in Calcutta, Njezi had built more than a hospice. She had built hope. She had built trust. She had built a vision of love that was beginning to inspire the city. People who had once felt forgotten now felt seen. The sick and hungry began to experience care, comfort, and dignity. Her work showed that even one person, with faith and courage, could start a movement that touched thousands. She had taken her first steps into greatness, and yet, as she looked at the city around her, Anjeza knew that bigger challenges were coming. The needs of the poor were endless. The sickness, hunger, and suffering she witnessed daily would continue to grow. Her faith would be tested like never before. Could she continue her mission? Could she protect the people she loved? Could she inspire others to join her when obstacles seemed impossible? These questions lingered in her mind as she prepared for what lay ahead. Despite success, bigger challenges awaited, ones that would test her faith like never before. And in the next chapter, we will see how she faced those trials, discovering new strength, resilience, and courage that would define her life and her mission. Chapter 5. When the world turned against her. Even as her mission in Calcutta grew, Anjeza faced new difficulties. Not everyone supported her work. Some people doubted her intentions. They asked, why does a nun care for the poor? Why spend time and energy on people who cannot pay? Critics said her efforts were useless, and some even whispered that she was wasting her life. These words hurt, but Anjeza did not let them stop her. She remembered her calling. She thought about the children she had fed, the sick she had comforted, and the lonely who had received her love. She knew that her mission mattered, even if others did not understand it. Money was always a challenge. Donations were small and often unpredictable. Some days there was not enough rice, milk, or blankets for all the children. Volunteers worried, and families became anxious. Anjeza had to rely on faith and creativity. She prayed for guidance every morning. Sometimes she walked through the city, asking neighbors and shopkeepers for small gifts of food. She worked tirelessly to stretch every resource. When a child received a meal or a blanket, she felt joy. Every small success reminded her that even little help could make a big difference. She learned patience, perseverance, and the importance of never giving up. Her work was physically demanding. The streets of Calcutta were crowded, hot, and often unsanitary. Carrying children, cleaning wounds, and walking long distances took a toll on her health. She felt tired and weak at times. Her body ached from long hours of work. There were days when she worried that she could not continue. Yet each morning she rose with renewed determination. She reminded herself that love and service were stronger than fatigue. Her commitment to the poor gave her strength she never knew she had. Even when she felt weak, she refused to stop. The emotional burden was heavy. She saw hunger, illness, and suffering every day. Children cried from hunger, mothers worried for their families. The sick had no medicine. Sometimes at night, she sat quietly in her small room and cried. She prayed for those she could not help. She asked God for strength and guidance. Despite the sadness, she reminded herself, love is stronger than fear. Compassion is stronger than despair. She learned to carry the pain of others in her heart without losing hope. She discovered that her emotions could fuel her mission rather than stop it. The weight of suffering became a source of empathy and courage. Working with volunteers was not always easy. People came with different ideas about how to help. Sometimes disagreements arose. Volunteers argued about methods, rules, or priorities. Anjeza faced these conflicts with patience and understanding. She listened carefully to everyone, explained her vision, and encouraged teamwork. She had to lead with firmness, but without anger. She learned the importance of communication, humility, and respect. Through these challenges, she built a strong, loyal team that shared her values and mission. Together, they learned to overcome differences and work toward a common goal, helping the poor and sick. Despite the difficulties, there were small moments of triumph. A child recovered from illness. A sick mother received medicine just in time. A hungry family ate a full meal. These moments reminded her why she began her mission. They showed her that every act of kindness, no matter how small, mattered. She began to see that challenges were not obstacles, but lessons. Each difficulty taught her patience, courage, and the power of faith. She understood that true service was never easy. It required endurance, love, and the willingness to face hardship every day. Even as she learned these lessons, new challenges continued to arise. The slums were crowded, the need was endless, and her resources were limited. She faced criticism, financial struggles, health problems, emotional burdens, and team conflicts, all at once. At times, the challenges seemed overwhelming, yet each challenge strengthened her spirit. She realized that her work was bigger than herself. Her mission was a spark of hope in a city filled with darkness. Every act of kindness, every prayer, and every small step brought light to the lives of others. Through these trials, Angeza discovered something important. She learned that love, patience, and faith could overcome almost any obstacle. She learned that setbacks were not failures, but opportunities to grow. She learned that leadership required humility, understanding, and persistence. And most of all, she learned that dedication to a purpose larger than herself could create change beyond what she ever imagined. These lessons prepared her for the challenges that lay ahead, ones far greater than criticism, hunger, or illness. Then one day something unexpected happened. The government called her. Officials wanted to meet her in the city office. She was nervous and unsure why. Perhaps they questioned her work. Perhaps they wanted to help. Perhaps something more serious was happening. She dressed carefully in her white sari with the blue border, packed her small bag, and walked to the office. Her heart beat fast. She thought about the children, the sick, and her volunteers. She wondered what this meeting could mean. Would it change her mission? Would it help her or make her work harder? Angeza understood that this meeting could be important. It might open doors, or it could create new difficulties. She reminded herself of the lessons she had learned: patience, courage, and faith. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. She knew that the choice she faced in that office could shape the future of her mission. She prayed silently, asking for guidance and strength. Her heart was steady, even as her mind raced with questions. She was ready to face whatever came next. Challenges had tested her, but she had not faltered. She had survived skepticism, lack of money, illness, emotional pain, and disagreements. Each obstacle had strengthened her heart, and now she stood at a new crossroads. The next step could change everything for her, her team, and the people she had devoted her life to helping. Her faith and determination had brought her this far, but the true test of her mission was just beginning. Then one day, the government called her to face a choice that could change everything. The path ahead was uncertain. Her courage, patience, and faith would be tested in ways she had never imagined, and yet, deep inside, she knew that whatever happened, she would continue to serve, continue to love, and continue to shine hope into the darkest corners of the city. Chapter 6: The Birth of a Global Mission. After years of tireless work, Angezi's dedication finally caught the attention of the government. Officials visited her hospice and schools. They saw the children she cared for, the sick she comforted, and the poor she fed. They recognized that her work was making a real difference in Calcutta. Slowly, the government offered support. They provided space for her to expand her mission. They gave small grants, permission to build more facilities, and connections to local communities. Angezi was grateful but humble. She knew the work was not about recognition. It was about service. Yet this support allowed her to reach even more people in need. With this new opportunity, Angezi took a bold step. She established a new organization called the Missionaries of Charity. Its goal was simple: to serve the poorest of the poor. Volunteers joined from all over India, and soon from around the world. Young men and women, inspired by her courage, left their homes to help her mission. Together, they cared for the sick, fed the hungry, and comforted the lonely. Angezi taught them that every act, no matter how small, could make a difference. She reminded them, "We cannot do everything, but we can do something with love." Her vision was growing larger than she had ever imagined. News of her work soon spread beyond Calcutta. International newspapers, magazines, and radio stations began telling her story. People around the world wrote letters of support. Some sent money. Others sent medicine or supplies. Many offered prayers for her and the people she served. Her mission was becoming global. People admired her courage, but she remained focused. She did not seek fame. She continued to walk the streets, carry children, feed the hungry, and pray for the sick. Yet the world was beginning to notice a nun from Calcutta whose small acts of love were changing thousands of lives. One of her most remarkable achievements during this time was saving hundreds of sick children from death. Families who had given up hope came to her for help. She nursed children with little food, few medicines, and sometimes no doctors. Volunteers learned to care for the sick with patience and attention. They washed wounds, gave medicine, and held small hands while whispering prayers. Slowly, the children grew stronger. Their families thanked Angezi with tears in their eyes. She smiled humbly, saying, "It is not I who saves them. It is love and God working through us." Her small acts had multiplied. Every meal, every bandage, and every prayer touched thousands of lives. As her mission expanded, she received awards and honors. Local governments praised her dedication. International organizations recognized her courage and service. People admired the nun who devoted her life to the poorest. Yet, despite the awards and recognition, Angezi remained humble. She never sought attention or praise. Every accolade reminded her of the people who had inspired her: the children in the streets, the sick in the slums, and the volunteers who worked alongside her. She often said, "These honors are for them, not for me." Her humility and dedication inspired many more volunteers and supporters to join her mission. Through these breakthroughs, Angezi realized something profound. Her mission was no longer just about helping a few people in Calcutta. It was about creating a movement of love and compassion. People from around the world were beginning to understand that caring for the poorest was not a burden, but a calling. She wrote letters, trained volunteers, and guided new missions in different cities. Slowly, the Missionaries of Charity became known worldwide. Even countries far away heard about the small nun with a big heart. Her influence was growing But she never forgot the small steps that started it all. Despite her growing fame, Ange's heart remained focused on the people in front of her. She continued to walk the streets, visit the sick, feed children, and pray with the dying. She knew that every face mattered. Every child, mother, or elderly person she helped reminded her why she had started this journey. And even as international attention increased, she maintained the simple discipline of prayer, patience, and service. She had learned that no mission, no matter how big, could succeed without love at its center. Her biggest breakthrough also revealed the power of teamwork. Volunteers, inspired by her example, began taking initiative. They opened small clinics, organized food drives, and cared for entire neighborhoods. Anges encouraged them, guided them, and sometimes stepped back to let them lead. She realized that leadership was not about control, but about inspiring others to act with love. This lesson allowed the missionaries of charity to grow stronger and reach farther than she had ever imagined. The network of compassion was multiplying. The world began to recognize that her work was more than charity. It was a movement, a revolution of love and service. Newspapers featured her story on the front page. Television programs and radio stations shared her mission with audiences far away. Letters from strangers arrived daily, thanking her for inspiring hope. Donations, volunteers, and prayers flowed from countries around the world. And Jay-Z understood that small acts, repeated with love and faith, could touch millions. Her vision was becoming reality. And yet, despite this success, she remained aware of the challenges ahead. There were still thousands of people suffering, countless streets filled with hunger and disease, and limited resources. Every victory reminded her of the enormous task still ahead. She knew that recognition and awards were not the goal. They were only tools to help her continue her mission. Her true work was to serve, to love, and to inspire others to do the same. She stayed focused, humble, and determined. Mother Teresa's first major breakthrough had changed her life and the lives of countless others. She had built a global organization, inspired volunteers, saved hundreds of children, and earned respect worldwide. Yet she also understood that her journey was far from complete. Bigger challenges and tests of faith were still coming. She had learned courage, humility, patience, and perseverance, but life would soon ask her to go even further. And so, despite global recognition and success, Mother Teresa faced her darkest moments yet. Her faith, patience, and love would be tested in ways she could never imagine. The mission she had built, the lives she had touched, and the hearts she had inspired were about to face new trials. Could she remain strong? Could she continue her work despite the difficulties? The story was far from over, and the next chapter would reveal how she met these challenges with courage, hope, and unwavering faith. Chapter 7: Her Darkest Days. Even great heroes face dark times, and Mother Teresa was no exception. After years of tireless service, her body began to show the strain. Long hours in the streets of Calcutta, lifting children, caring for the sick, and walking in the hot sun, took their toll. She became seriously ill. Doctors warned her to slow down, to rest, and to take care of herself. They said her health might fail completely if she did not listen. Yet Mother Teresa knew that slowing down meant leaving people without care. She felt torn between her mission and her body's limits. Every day she had to make a choice: rest or continue serving those who needed her. Along with her physical struggles came personal doubts. She began to question her faith. Sometimes she felt that God was silent. She prayed for guidance, for strength, and for answers, but the silence felt long and heavy. She wondered if her work mattered. Was she truly making a difference? Could she continue when the need seemed endless? These questions weighed on her heart. She experienced moments of fear and despair. Yet, deep inside, a small voice reminded her of her calling, the reason she had left home as a young girl, the reason she had walked the streets carrying children, feeding the hungry, and comforting the dying. Criticism from the world added to her challenges. Some people questioned her methods. They argued that her work was outdated, too small, or inefficient. Scientists, journalists, and even some members of the church questioned whether her efforts were helping anyone at all. They wrote articles, gave interviews, and debated her approach. At times, Mother Teresa felt invisible, misunderstood, and discouraged. Yet she did not let criticism stop her. She remembered the faces of the children she had saved, the families she had helped, and the volunteers who had joined her mission. She knew that the critics could not see what she saw: lives touched, hope restored, and love shared. Financial pressures also threatened her work. Donations fluctuated. Some months, there was barely enough money to feed the children or buy medicine. Maintaining hospices, schools, and small clinics became a constant worry. Volunteers worked tirelessly, but even they needed resources to continue. Mother Teresa had to manage every rupee carefully. She prayed for guidance and used creativity to stretch every donation. She visited local shops and neighbors, asking for small contributions. Sometimes she went days without knowing where the next meal or medicine would come from. Yet she persevered, believing that even small resources, guided by love, could achieve miracles. The emotional burden was heavy. Despite global recognition and admiration, she experienced loneliness and sorrow. Friends and colleagues supported her, but no one could fully understand the weight she carried. Every life lost, every sick child she could not save, and every family left in despair pressed on her heart. At night, she often sat alone, crying softly and praying for strength. She felt isolated, even amidst volunteers and supporters. The responsibility of caring for thousands of lives seemed enormous, and yet she refused to give up. She reminded herself that love was stronger than fear, and that faith could carry her through even the darkest moments. Even in these trials, Mother Teresa learned valuable lessons. She discovered that doubt and difficulty are part of every great mission. She learned that faith is not always a feeling of certainty, but a choice to continue despite fear and pain. She realized that criticism, illness, and financial struggles are tests, not signs to stop. And she understood that love requires sacrifice, endurance, and courage. She remembered the words of the priests who inspired her as a child. Serve the poor with your whole heart, even when the world doubts you. These words became her guide through the storm of challenges she faced. During this period, she also found new ways to inspire others. Even when she was weak, she encouraged volunteers to take initiative. She trained them to care for the sick with patience, respect, and kindness. She reminded them that every small action mattered. She shared her doubts honestly with trusted companions, teaching them that faith includes struggle, and that even the strongest hearts can feel pain. Through her example, volunteers learned resilience, humility, and courage. The mission continued even as Mother Teresa faced her darkest days. Despite the difficulties, small victories reminded her why she could not stop. A sick child recovered. A hungry family received a meal just in time. Volunteers shared stories of hope and kindness in the slums. These moments became sparks of light in her dark days. They reminded her that her work, though difficult and sometimes lonely, had meaning. Each act of love, no matter how small, mattered. Each smile restored hope. Each prayer brought comfort. These simple successes fueled her courage and strengthened her resolve. Mother Teresa also reflected deeply during this time. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, from the small streets of Skopje to the crowded slums of Calcutta. She remembered her family, her childhood dreams, and the missionaries who inspired her. She remembered the young girl who had given food to poor neighbors and held the hands of the sick. These memories reminded her that she had always been guided by love. No challenge, no illness, and no criticism could take that from her. Her purpose remained clear, even when the path was difficult. And yet, she knew that the darkest moments were not over. Health problems, criticism, financial pressures, and emotional burdens were only the beginning. More tests were coming, ones that would challenge not only her body and mind, but her faith and heart. She felt the weight of the mission growing heavier with every passing day. Still, she did not despair. She prayed, she walked, she served. She held the hands of the sick and whispered love and comfort. Each step, each prayer, and each act of kindness became a small light in the darkness. Even in her lowest moments, Mother Teresa never lost sight of the spark that had begun her mission. Deep inside, she carried hope. Hope for the children she saved. Hope for the families she comforted. Hope for the volunteers who believed in her. Hope for a world that could be better, one act of love at a time. She realized that even when surrounded by doubt, criticism, and sorrow, a single spark of hope could guide her forward. She would continue to serve, to love, and to inspire, no matter how difficult the journey became. Yet, even in darkness, she found a spark of hope that would guide her forward. This small light, though fragile, would grow. It would sustain her through illness, doubt, and criticism. It would guide her toward resilience, new victories, and the continuation of her extraordinary mission. And in the next chapter, we will see how Mother Teresa rose again, stronger and more determined, ready to face the challenges ahead with courage, faith, and unwavering love. Chapter 8: Faith That Rose Again. Even the strongest hearts can feel broken, and Mother Teresa had faced moments of deep despair. Yet, in the midst of darkness, she found a path forward. Through prayer and quiet reflection, she began to regain her strength. She remembered the small girl in Skopje who had first felt the need to care for others. She recalled the streets of Calcutta, the sick children, the hungry families, and the lonely souls who needed love. These memories reignited her purpose. She understood once again why she had left home, why she had endured illness, criticism, and loneliness. It was always about love, service, and faith. With renewed determination, Mother Teresa looked for new strategies to improve her work. She taught volunteers better ways to care for the poor, Some learned to organize medicine and food more efficiently. Others trained in hospitals and schools to help children and patients. She encouraged small acts that made a big difference, like carrying water to the sick, cleaning wounds carefully, or simply holding a hand and whispering hope. She reminded her team that love, patience, and understanding were the most important tools. Every small improvement multiplied the impact of their mission, and slowly, the work became more organized and more effective. As her strategies improved, the mission began to grow globally. New centers opened in other cities of India. Soon, missions were being established in countries far from Calcutta. Volunteers from around the world came to learn, serve, and carry her message of compassion. People were inspired by her courage, humility, and determination. Her work was no longer only a story of a small nun helping a few people. It was now a movement, spreading hope across continents. Children, families, and the sick in faraway lands received care and love through the network she had built. Her resilience inspired countless young people. Students, volunteers, and ordinary citizens saw that one person could make a difference. They watched how she faced illness, criticism, and financial difficulties without giving up. They learned that challenges are part of every journey, and that courage comes from faith and action. Many joined her mission, bringing energy, ideas, and love to her cause. Some became leaders themselves, trained by her example. Mother Teresa's determination showed the world that even in adversity, one can rise, serve, and inspire others to do the same. Through these experiences, she also discovered inner peace. She learned to accept her limits and trust in God's plan. She understood that she could not save every life, but she could give her best to those she could help. She embraced patience, realizing that meaningful change takes time. She found comfort in small successes and learned to let go of failures she could not control. Her faith deepened and her heart grew calmer. The weight of responsibility remained, but it was lighter because she had learned to carry it with grace. Her love for humanity, combined with trust in God, gave her a sense of peace she had never felt before. The redemption of Mother Teresa's spirit brought new energy to her mission. She returned to the streets with courage and joy. She spoke with the sick, fed the hungry, and guided volunteers with patience and wisdom. Every day she reminded herself and her team that small acts of kindness could grow into large waves of change. She celebrated even tiny victories: a child recovering, a family receiving help, or a new volunteer joining the cause. This moment strengthened her resolve and reminded her that love is the greatest power in the world. As her influence grew, Mother Teresa realized that resilience was not only about surviving difficulties. It was about turning setbacks into opportunities, doubts into faith, and weakness into strength. She encouraged volunteers to see every challenge as a lesson. She shared stories of struggle and hope, showing that perseverance, compassion, and faith could overcome obstacles. Her life became a teaching example, proving that redemption is possible when one remains committed to love and service, even in the face of adversity. Her work began to touch hearts far beyond Calcutta. Newspapers, magazines, and radio stations shared stories of her compassion and dedication. People everywhere, inspired by her courage, began to support her mission. Donations increased, volunteers multiplied, and new missions opened in more countries. The work that had once seemed small and local now had global reach. Mother Teresa had turned her struggle and perseverance into hope for millions. She had become a symbol of love, humility, and resilience. And yet, despite global attention, she remained humble. She did not seek fame or recognition. Every award, every letter, and every donation reminded her of the children, families, and volunteers who made her work possible. She continued to walk the streets, feed the hungry, care for the sick, and comfort the lonely. She led with patience, kindness, and faith. Through her example, people learned that true service requires both action and heart. Even with growing influence, she remained faithful to her mission, to serve the poorest of the poor with love. Mother Teresa's story of resilience showed that even after darkness, renewal is possible. She had faced illness, criticism, financial struggles, and emotional burdens. She had doubted herself and wondered if her work mattered. Yet, through prayer, reflection, and determination, she rose again. Her faith strengthened, her mission expanded, and her heart found peace. She demonstrated that setbacks are not the end, but opportunities to grow stronger, serve better, and inspire others. The spark of hope that carried her through the darkest moments now shone brighter than ever. She had learned that love, patience, and faith could overcome any challenge. She had transformed personal struggles into lessons for the world. Her story became a living example that even the smallest actions, guided by courage and compassion, could create a ripple effect, reaching far beyond one's own life. And as Mother Teresa looked ahead, she understood that the journey was far from over. Her work, her mission, and her influence were ready to reach new heights. The world was beginning to notice, and soon it would honor her in ways she had never imagined. Chapter 9: The Light That Never Faded. Mother Teresa's work had touched so many lives that the world began to take notice. In 1979, she received the Nobel Peace Prize, one of the highest honors in the world. When she stood on the stage to accept the award, she did not speak about herself. Instead, she thanked her volunteers, the poor, and the sick she had served. She said that the real heroes were the people she cared for and the countless helpers who joined her mission. This humility touched the hearts of millions. People admired her not only for her actions, but for her dedication to lifting others up without seeking fame or recognition. Her story quickly spread across the world. Newspapers printed her photos and stories of her compassion. Television programs featured her walking the streets, feeding children, and comforting the sick. Books were written about her life, sharing lessons of love, courage, and selflessness. People everywhere, from school children to adults, learned about the nun from Calcutta who had given her life to others. She became a symbol of hope and kindness in a world that often seemed cold and busy. Even faraway nations began to recognize that one person's love could inspire millions. The missionaries of charity grew beyond India. Schools, hospitals, and orphanages opened in many countries, from Asia to Africa to America. Volunteers worked tirelessly, following Mother Teresa's example. They taught children, cared for the sick, and supported families who had no hope. Her organization helped millions of people who were poor, hungry, or sick. Each school provided education, each hospital provided care, and each orphanage gave love to children who had none. Her work showed that one person's dedication, multiplied by a team, could change the lives of millions. World leaders began to notice her example as well. Presidents, prime ministers, and diplomats visited her missions. They came to learn about compassion, humility, and selfless service. They watched how she treated every person with dignity and respect, regardless of their wealth or background. She taught them that true leadership is about serving others, not seeking power. Her words and actions inspired leaders to think about policies that could help the poor and vulnerable. Even people in positions of great influence were humbled by the simple acts of a nun with a big heart. Mother Teresa's life became a lasting inspiration for people everywhere. Students, volunteers, and ordinary citizens looked to her as an example of courage and selflessness. They learned that love is more powerful than fear, hope stronger than despair, and kindness stronger than criticism. Her example encouraged people to help their neighbors, feed the hungry, comfort the sick, and support those in need. Children growing up learned that even small acts of care could make a difference. Volunteers understood that dedication and patience were more important than fame or rewards. Her life became a living lesson in how one person could create a ripple effect of goodness. Even as she aged, Mother Teresa continued to work tirelessly. Her mission expanded, but her focus remained on the people in front of her. She continued to walk the streets of Calcutta, visit patients, and hold children in her arms. She continued to train volunteers and guide new missions around the world. She never stopped teaching that love and service were more important than recognition or awards. Her daily actions reminded everyone that legacy is built through consistent kindness, humility, and dedication. The influence of her mission was felt in small towns and large cities alike. Orphans in Africa found families in her care. Sick patients in India received medicine and comfort. Children in America learned about compassion and service through schools inspired by her work. Her organization became a network of hope, connecting volunteers and the poor in ways that crossed continents and cultures. Her vision of love and service had become global, and it continued to grow even as she grew older. Her story also showed that true legacy is not about wealth or power. It is about impact on the lives of others. Mother Teresa touched hearts, changed minds, and inspired action. She proved that one person could make a difference in a world full of challenges. Her life became a lesson for generations to serve others, to act with courage, and to love without expecting anything in return. People around the world began to follow her example, volunteering in their communities, caring for the sick, and supporting the poor. As Mother Teresa's fame grew, she remained humble and focused. She continued to walk the streets, feed the hungry, visit the sick, and comfort the lonely. Every action, small or large, carried her message. Love is powerful, and service to others is the greatest gift. She inspired millions not through speeches or lectures, but through simple acts of kindness and unwavering dedication. Her life became a story told in schools, homes, and churches worldwide. It reminded everyone that even one person can ignite hope in a dark world. Even after her death in 1997, Mother Teresa's legacy continued to grow. Her missions still operate in dozens of countries. Volunteers and leaders continue to follow her example of love, humility, and service. People remember her lessons about courage, selflessness, and compassion. Her life is studied, celebrated, and shared in stories, books, and films. Millions of people still feel inspired by her example every day. She had shown that a life dedicated to helping others can leave a mark far greater than wealth, fame, or power ever could. The story of Mother Teresa proves that legacy is not measured by awards or recognition alone. It is measured by the lives we touch, the hope we create, and the love we share. Her life is a reminder that kindness, courage, and service have the power to change the world. From the streets of Calcutta to homes and schools around the globe, her influence continues to shine. Millions of people carry her lessons in their hearts, proving that one person's love can inspire generations. And so, even after her death, her lessons continue to touch hearts everywhere. Her story reminds us that love, compassion, and service are timeless. Every volunteer, every act of kindness, and every small gesture inspired by her example keeps her mission alive. The ripple of her life spreads further with every person who chooses to act with love and courage. The world remembers not only the nun from Calcutta, but the hope, humility, and unwavering dedication she gave to humanity. Chapter 10. Lessons that still inspire the world. Mother Teresa's life is a story of courage, love, and service. She faced challenges that would have stopped many people. She endured illness, loneliness, criticism, and financial struggles. She worked long hours in difficult conditions. Yet, through all hardships, she never gave up. From a small girl in Skopje to a nun walking the streets of Calcutta, her life shows that determination and love can overcome any obstacle. She believed that every life matters, and every action of kindness counts. This story teaches us that greatness is not measured by fame or wealth, but by the love and care we give to others. One of the greatest lessons from her life is the power of small acts. Mother Teresa showed that even simple gestures can have a huge impact. A warm meal for a hungry child, a smile for a lonely person, or a prayer for someone in pain. All these acts matter. She often reminded people that no one can do everything, but everyone can do something. Each small act creates a ripple that spreads beyond what we can see. Her life encourages us to start small, be consistent, and never underestimate the effect of our kindness. Faith and courage were at the heart of her work. Mother Teresa trusted God completely. Her courage did not come from physical strength or influence, but from her faith. She faced fear, criticism, and uncertainty with the confidence that her mission was meaningful. Even when she doubted, she continued to act with love and compassion. Faith gave her strength to persevere when situations seemed impossible. For learners and viewers, her story shows that inner belief and persistence can help us overcome difficulties, whether in learning, work, or life itself. For English learners, her life teaches lessons beyond kindness. Learning a language is like her mission. Small daily efforts, writing, listening, speaking, and practicing can lead to big results. Just as she helped one person at a time, you can improve your English one word, one sentence, and one conversation at a time. Persistence is key. Mistakes are part of the journey, and every step forward matters. Compassion, patience, and hope are not just values for life. They also guide learning. Mother Teresa's story reminds us that steady effort leads to meaningful change. Even ordinary people can create extraordinary impact. Mother Teresa was not born with great power or wealth. She was a simple girl with a dream to serve, yet Her dedication inspired millions. Her life proves that anyone, no matter where they start, can make a difference. Helping neighbors, volunteering, or offering support to those in need are ways to follow her example. Every small act of kindness adds up. When we commit to love, patience, and service, we can change lives, including our own. Her story also teaches reflection. It encourages us to think about our choices. How do we spend our time? How do we treat others? Mother Teresa reminds us that our actions define our legacy, not our words or fame. By focusing on love, service, and empathy, we can leave a positive mark on the world. Learning English, helping a neighbor, or simply showing respect to someone are all ways to live her lessons today. Each act of kindness strengthens our character and makes the world brighter. Even in challenges, there is growth. Mother Teresa faced illness, financial pressure, and criticism, but she turned struggles into lessons. Every difficulty became an opportunity to improve, to inspire, and to grow in faith. Life will always have hardships, but how we respond defines us. We can choose patience, courage, and compassion, even when it is hard. Her example encourages us to see obstacles as chances to learn, to become stronger, and to help others. Mother Teresa's story also teaches hope. She believed that even the smallest actions could bring change. For learners, this is a powerful message. Every new word, every conversation, every small effort contributes to progress. Learning a language, helping a friend, or caring for someone in need. These are small steps with big outcomes. Hope keeps us moving forward, even when results seem slow. Her life shows that persistence, combined with love and faith, can create extraordinary outcomes. Her dedication to service also highlights the importance of humility. She never sought recognition or praise. She gave awards and honors to the people around her, thanking volunteers and the poor instead of herself. Mother Teresa showed that true greatness is not measured by titles or money, but by love, empathy, and action. This lesson encourages learners to focus on the joy of giving and the process of helping rather than seeking rewards or approval. As we reflect on her life, it becomes clear that love is the greatest gift we can offer. Mother Teresa reminds us that helping others, even in small ways, creates a legacy that outlasts time. Each kind word, act, or prayer contributes to a better world. She encourages us to see the value in everyday acts and to approach life with courage, humility, and compassion. Her story is not only about service, but also about inspiring others to act with love in their own lives. Mother Teresa's journey teaches that persistence, courage, faith, and love are universal lessons. Her life inspires us to serve, learn, and grow. It shows that small, consistent efforts, whether in learning English, helping someone, or pursuing a goal, can lead to extraordinary results. Her example invites us to reflect. What small act of kindness can you do today? How can you help others and make a difference in your world? Mother Teresa reminds us, love is the greatest gift. Serve others, and your life will shine. Every effort matters. Every small act counts. Every word of encouragement, every gesture of care, and every moment of patience contributes to a brighter world. Just as she touched millions, you can touch the lives of people around you. Her story encourages action, reflection, and hope. If you enjoyed this story, keep practicing with more English stories like this one. Remember, Every small step you take in learning, every act of kindness, and every effort to help others will create ripples of change. Like Mother Teresa, you can make a difference. Every word you speak, every lesson you learn, and every moment you serve is part of your journey toward a meaningful and inspiring life.